Her son, called the billionaire CEO Daddy, in the office silence followed. The boardroom went dead silent. 23 executives frozen mid-breath. Presentations stopped mid-slide. Even the hum of the air conditioning seemed to hold its breath. A 4-year-old boy stood in the doorway, tears streaming down his face, his small voice breaking the silence like glass shattering on marble. "Daddy." The word hung in the air, impossible and electric. "Daddy, I can't find Mama." She said, "Wait, but I got scared." The child ran across the polished floor, past leather chairs worth more than most cars, past men and women in suits who collectively controlled billions of dollars. He ran straight to the man standing at the head of the table, Colton Pierce, billionaire, CEO, a man known to the business world as someone who turned failing companies into empires, a man who had just been presenting a corporate acquisition strategy to the most powerful investors in the industry. The little boy crashed into Colton's legs and wrapped his arms around him like he was the only safe thing in a terrifying world. And Colton Pierce, the man who never showed emotion in business meetings, the man who built a fortune on calculated decisions and strategic precision, looked down at this child and something in his expression cracked wide open. But here's what nobody in that room knew. Here's the secret that would shatter assumptions, expose a pharmaceutical fraud conspiracy, and rebuild 2 devastatingly broken lives. That little boy wasn't his son. The woman who burst through the door 30 seconds later, absolute horror written across her face, wasn't his wife. She was the cleaning woman. And the silence that followed wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of the most dangerous, beautiful, impossible love story you've ever heard. My name is Cedar Drama, and I'm about to tell you how one word spoken by a traumatized child brought a billionaire to his knees, exposed a medical fraud that destroyed innocent lives, and proved that sometimes the family you choose is worth more than any fortune you could build. This is a story about a mother fighting an unwinnable battle, about a man grieving a family he lost before he could hold them, about a little boy who hadn't spoken in 8 months until the moment he saw something that made him believe in safety again. This is about sacrifice, secrets, and the 3 seconds of silence that changed 3 lives forever. Stay with me. You've never heard anything like this before. Welcome to Cedar Drama. While you're here, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Not because I'm asking nicely, but because what happens next will make you question everything you think you know about family, love, and what it really means to be someone's father. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, and if you've ever witnessed a moment so powerful, it changed the entire trajectory of someone's life. Because that's exactly what you're about to experience. Let me take you back to where it all started. 6 months before that boardroom. Before the silence. Before the world thought it understood what was happening. Let me tell you about a woman named Brooklyn Hayes. Midnight on the 68th floor looks different than you'd imagine. The city sprawls below like a galaxy of golden lights. The silence is so complete you can hear your own heartbeat. And if you're Brooklyn Hayes, pushing a cleaning cart past offices that cost more per square foot than most people earn in a year, that silence feels like judgment. Brooklyn moved through the executive suite of Pierce Global Industries with practiced invisibility. Empty the trash, wipe down the desks, vacuum the conference rooms. Don't touch anything personal. Don't look too closely at the documents left carelessly on $1,000 desks. Don't think about the fact that 3 years ago, you wore scrubs instead of a cleaning uniform. Don't remember that you used to save children's lives instead of emptying their trash. Don't think, don't feel, just survive. She was 26 years old and looked older. Exhaustion will do that to you. So will fighting a legal battle you can't afford against a man who has money and connections and absolutely no conscience. So will watching your 4-year-old son retreat into silence because the world became too terrifying to speak into. Brooklyn paused at a window, her reflection ghostly against the city lights. She barely recognized herself anymore. The bright-eyed pediatric nurse who believed in justice and happy endings felt like a stranger. A naive girl who didn't understand that sometimes the people you love most are the ones who destroy you. Her phone buzzed. A text message. Can't watch Bentley tomorrow night. Family emergency. Sorry. Brooklyn's hands started shaking. The phone trembled in her grip. Tomorrow night was her shift. The shift she couldn't miss because she'd already missed 2 this month when Bentley had been sick. One more absence, and she'd lose this job. And this job, humiliating as it was, paid for the studio apartment that kept them off the streets. It paid for the public defender who was supposed to be helping her get her nursing license back. It paid for the child psychologist who was supposed to help Bentley speak again. She couldn't lose this job, which meant tomorrow night she'd have to do something she'd never done before, something dangerous and desperate and possibly job-ending. She'd have to bring Bentley to work. Brooklyn closed her eyes and thought about the chain of decisions that had led her here. How does a respected pediatric nurse end up cleaning office buildings at midnight? Let me tell you exactly how. 4 years ago, Brooklyn married Marcus Hayes. He was a pharmaceutical sales representative, charming, successful, attentive. He seemed perfect. Her family loved him. Her friends celebrated the wedding like it was a fairy tale beginning. It was actually the beginning of a nightmare, but Brooklyn didn't see that until it was too late. The abuse started small. Comments about her weight, suggestions about what she should wear, concerns about how much time she spent at the hospital instead of home with him. Slowly, methodically, Marcus isolated her from friends, from family, from anyone who might have noticed the bruises he was careful to leave where her scrubs would cover them. When Brooklyn got pregnant with Bentley, she thought maybe a baby would change things, that Marcus would soften, that becoming a father would make him the man she'd believed he was. Instead, it made him worse. But Brooklyn loved her son with a ferocity that gave her courage she didn't know she possessed. When Bentley was 2 years old, she started planning her escape. She opened a secret bank account. She contacted a domestic violence shelter. She documented every incident, every threat, every bruise. And then she made the mistake of telling Marcus she was leaving. 2 days later, Brooklyn was called into her supervisor's office at Seattle Children's Hospital. There had been an accusation, a serious accusation. A patient had been given an incorrect dosage of sedation medication. The child had experienced complications. The family was threatening to sue. And the medication log showed that Brooklyn had been the administering nurse. Except Brooklyn knew she hadn't made that mistake. She was meticulous with medication, triple-checked everything. The logs had been altered. Someone had changed them. That someone was Marcus. It took Brooklyn months to piece together what had actually happened. Marcus worked for Westridge Pharmaceuticals, the same company that manufactured the sedation medication. He had access to hospital systems through his sales relationships. He had the technical knowledge to alter digital records. And he had the motivation to destroy Brooklyn's career so thoroughly that she'd have nowhere to run, no way to support herself if she left him. The investigation took 8 months. 8 months of Brooklyn suspended without pay. 8 months of legal battles she couldn't afford. 8 months of Marcus playing the concerned husband publicly while privately tightening the noose around her life. The hospital didn't press criminal charges. They couldn't prove beyond reasonable doubt what had happened. But they also couldn't risk their reputation on a nurse with a questioned medication record. Brooklyn's nursing license was suspended pending further investigation. Her career was over. And Marcus won custody of the narrative. He filed for divorce, claiming Brooklyn's job loss and instability made her an unfit mother. He painted himself as the stable parent, the concerned father, the victim of a wife who'd lost her way. The night the custody hearing ended with Marcus getting primary custody and Brooklyn getting supervised visitation, she went home to her new studio apartment and broke down. She cried until she couldn't breathe. Until Bentley, her 3-year-old baby, climbed into her lap and tried to comfort her with his tiny hands on her face. She cried so hard that her son stopped speaking. Not immediately, but over the following weeks, Bentley's cheerful chatter faded. His laughter became rare, and eventually, he stopped talking altogether. The child psychologist called it selective mutism, trauma-induced silence. Bentley's little brain had witnessed his mother's complete breakdown, had felt the instability and fear, and had decided that speaking wasn't safe anymore. That staying quiet was the only way to stay invisible. Brooklyn fought the custody arrangement. She found a public defender willing to help. She gathered evidence about Marcus's abuse. But without her nursing income, without her career, without the ability to provide the kind of stable home the court system valued, she was fighting an uphill battle. So she took the only job she could get: night cleaning for a commercial janitorial company. It paid just enough. It didn't require background checks that would flag her suspended nursing license. And it meant she could be with Bentley during the day when she had visitation. For 6 months, Brooklyn lived in this limbo, cleaning offices at night, spending days with a silent child, fighting a legal battle that seemed unwinnable, watching Marcus live his life like he hadn't destroyed hers. And then came the night when her babysitter canceled. The night when Brooklyn had to choose between losing her job and bringing Bentley to the 68th floor of Pierce Global Industries. The night when everything changed. Brooklyn looked at her phone again. At the text message that had just shattered her carefully balanced survival, she took a deep breath. She made her decision. Tomorrow night, Bentley would come with her. She'd bring his tablet, his headphones, his favorite stuffed dinosaur. She'd settle him in a corner office where nobody would be working. She'd pray that he'd fall asleep and stay quiet, and that nobody would ever know. Just one night. Just survive one more night. Brooklyn had no idea that surviving this one night would lead to a billionaire kneeling down to her son's eye level and saying words that would crack both their hearts wide open. She had no idea that her desperate choice would expose a fraud that had destroyed multiple lives. She had no idea that the man whose office she cleaned every night was fighting his own battle with grief and loss, and the suffocating weight of a future that felt empty, no matter how much success he achieved. All Brooklyn knew was that she had to survive. For Bentley, for the possibility that someday, somehow, justice might actually exist. She finished her shift that night. She went home to her son, and she prepared for the moment that would change everything. The moment when Bentley would see Colton Pierce and speak for the first time in 8 months. The next evening, Brooklyn stood outside Pierce Global Industries with Bentley's small hand in hers and her heart hammering against her ribs like it wanted to escape. This is a terrible idea. The thought looped through her mind on repeat. This could get you fired. This could make everything worse. But what choice did she have? Bentley looked up at her with those enormous brown eyes that looked so much like her own. He was wearing his favorite pajamas under his jacket, the ones with rockets on them. His dinosaur, a battered stegosaurus named Spike, was clutched in his free hand. He hadn't said a word since she'd picked him up from the supervised visitation center that afternoon. He never did anymore. "Baby, Mama has to work tonight." Brooklyn knelt down to his level on the sidewalk outside the gleaming office tower. "You're going to come with me, okay? You need to be very quiet." "Very good. Can you do that for me?" Bentley nodded solemnly. His silence was its own kind of answer. Brooklyn felt tears prick her eyes, but forced them back. She'd learned not to cry in front of her son. He'd already witnessed too much maternal breakdown. He needed her to be strong even when she felt like she was shattering into 1,000 pieces. They rode the elevator to the 68th floor. The building was nearly empty at this hour. Just a few late-working executives, security guards, and the invisible army of cleaning staff who made the corporate world sparkle. Brooklyn badged into the executive suite. The lights were dimmed for after hours. Most offices were dark. She settled Bentley in a small conference room far from the main corridor. She set up his tablet with headphones. She surrounded him with his stuffed animals and the blanket from home that still smelled familiar. "Stay here, baby. Watch your shows. Mama will be right outside, okay? If you need me, just come find me. I'll be in the big offices." Bentley climbed onto a chair that was far too large for him. His legs dangled above the floor. He looked impossibly small in this space designed for powerful adults making powerful decisions. Brooklyn kissed his forehead. I love you, Bentley, so much. We're going to be okay. I promise. It was a promise she wasn't sure she could keep, but she said it anyway because that's what mothers do. They promise hope even when hope feels like a lie. She left him there and began her cleaning route. For 2 hours, everything went according to plan. Brooklyn emptied trash bins and wiped down desks. She vacuumed conference rooms and cleaned coffee stations. She checked on Bentley every 20 minutes. He stayed exactly where she'd left him. Silent, still, good. And then Brooklyn made a mistake. She got distracted by a particularly stubborn coffee stain in the executive break room. She spent 15 extra minutes scrubbing it. She lost track of time. When she finally rushed back to check on Bentley, the conference room was empty. Her heart stopped. Bentley, she kept her voice to an urgent whisper. Bentley, baby, where are you? Nothing. Panic flooded her system like ice water. She ran down the corridor, checked the bathrooms, looked in every office she'd already cleaned. No, Bentley. Oh God, where is he? Brooklyn's panic turned to terror. This building was 68 floors of steel and glass. There were stairwells and elevators and 1,000 places a curious 4-year-old could wander. There were windows and balconies, and her mind immediately went to every horrible possibility. She was running now, abandoning all pretense of professional invisibility. She called his name louder. Bentley, please, baby, where are you? And then she heard it. A voice from the corner office. The big one. The one with the nameplate that read Colton Pierce, Chief Executive Officer. The light was on. Brooklyn's terror transformed into a different kind of fear. Someone was working late. Someone had found her son. Someone was about to get her fired. She ran toward that office just as she heard a small voice. A voice she hadn't heard in 8 months. Daddy? Brooklyn skidded to a stop in the doorway, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. Bentley stood in the middle of the enormous office. Tears streaked his face. And he was looking up at a man who'd been sitting at the desk but was now standing, staring at this child with an expression Brooklyn couldn't quite read. Colton Pierce. Brooklyn had seen him before, of course. She'd cleaned his office 100 times. She knew what he looked like from a distance. Tall. Dark hair that was probably expensive to maintain in that casually perfect style. Suits that cost more than her monthly rent. A face that belonged on magazine covers about powerful men under 40. But she'd never been this close. Never seen his eyes, which were blue, startlingly blue, and currently wide with shock. Daddy. Bentley's voice broke on the word. I can't find Mama, she said. Wait, but I got scared. Oh God. Brooklyn's voice came out strangled. Bentley, no, I'm here. I'm right here. But Bentley wasn't looking at her. He was looking at Colton Pierce. And then he did something that made Brooklyn's knees nearly buckle. He ran to Colton and wrapped his small arms around the billionaire's legs. Sir. Brooklyn rushed forward. I'm so sorry. He doesn't. He's confused. He hasn't spoken in 8 months, and he doesn't understand. Please. I'll get him. I'll leave. I'm so sorry. She reached for Bentley, but Colton did something unexpected. He knelt down. Slowly, carefully, Colton Pierce lowered himself to Bentley's eye level. His expensive suit probably cost more than Brooklyn made in 6 months, and he was kneeling on the office floor without hesitation. Hey, buddy. Colton's voice was gentle, surprisingly gentle for a man who commanded boardrooms full of intimidated executives. What's your name? Bentley hiccuped. His arms were still around Colton's neck now instead of his legs. He mumbled something into Colton's shoulder. I didn't catch that. Can you tell me again? Bentley. The name came out clearer this time. Bentley Hayes. Colton's eyes flickered to Brooklyn, then back to the child. That's a great name. Strong name. How old are you, Bentley? Bentley held up 4 fingers. 4 years old. That's a good age. Colton glanced at the stuffed dinosaur Bentley had dropped. Is that your dinosaur? Bentley nodded. What's his name? Bentley pulled back just enough to look at Colton's face. Spike. He's a stegosaurus. They eat plants, not mean like T-Rex. Brooklyn felt tears streaming down her face because her son was talking, actually talking, full sentences, to a stranger, to a billionaire whose office she cleaned. Spike is a good name. Colton picked up the dinosaur and handed it to Bentley. Stegosauruses are my favorite. Mine too. Bentley clutched Spike. Are you my daddy? The question landed like a bomb in the quiet office. Colton went very still. Why do you think I'm your daddy? Bentley pointed at the desk, at something Brooklyn couldn't see from where she stood frozen in the doorway. You have a baby picture, like you were waiting for me. Colton's face did something complicated, pain and surprise and something that looked almost like breaking. Can I see the picture? Bentley asked. Sir, Brooklyn finally found her voice. Please, I'm so sorry. I can't explain. Colton held up one hand, a gentle gesture but clearly a signal to wait. He looked at Bentley. That picture. Colton's voice was rougher now. That's a picture of my son. He would have been about your age. Where is he? Bentley asked with the innocent directness of a 4-year-old who didn't yet understand that some questions hurt. He died. Colton said the words simply. Honestly, before he was born, he and his mama both died. Oh. Bentley processed this with the gravity of a small child trying to understand big concepts. That's very sad. It is very sad. Do you miss them? Every single day. Bentley reached out and patted Colton's face with one small hand. Mama cries every day too. Maybe you can be sad together. Maybe that would make it hurt less. Brooklyn made a sound. Half sob, half shocked laugh. Her son, her beautiful, empathetic, silent for 8 months son was talking about feelings to a billionaire CEO at midnight in a corporate office. Colton looked at Brooklyn for the first time since kneeling down. Really looked at her. She saw him taking in her cleaning uniform, her tear-streaked face. The panic and embarrassment and desperate love written all over her. You're Bentley's mom. Yes, sir. Brooklyn wiped her face. I'm Brooklyn. Brooklyn Hayes. I'm part of the night cleaning crew. I'm so sorry for this. My babysitter canceled and I couldn't miss work, and I know I shouldn't have brought him, but I didn't have a choice. And he was supposed to stay in the conference room, but he must have gotten scared and I lost track of time. And Brooklyn. Colton said her name and she stopped babbling. It's okay. Take a breath. I'll leave. We'll leave right now. I understand if you need to report this. Report what? A scared kid looking for his mom? I violated company policy. Bringing a child to the workplace. I'll resign. Please don't make this a big thing. I can't afford any more trouble. Colton stood up, still holding Bentley, who had decided he wasn't letting go. Any more trouble? It's a long story. I've got time. Colton walked to one of the leather chairs and sat down with Bentley in his lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. Your son hasn't spoken in 8 months? How did you... He told me. Colton looked down at Bentley. When I asked him his name, he said, My name is Bentley Hayes, and I haven't talked in 8 months, but you look safe. Brooklyn's hand went to her mouth. So, I'm curious, Colton continued. What happened 8 months ago that made this brave kid stop talking? And what happened tonight that made him start again? Brooklyn stood there in her cleaning uniform in a billionaire's office at midnight with her son in a stranger's lap, speaking for the first time since the worst night of her life. And she had to make a choice. Lie and leave. Protect herself. Stay invisible. Or tell the truth. Risk being seen. And maybe, possibly, find an ally in the last place she'd ever expected. She looked at Bentley. At the way he'd relaxed against Colton's chest. At the trust on his face. Her son had chosen to speak. To trust. Maybe she should too. It's a long story, Brooklyn said quietly. And it's not a good one. The best stories usually aren't, Colton said. Sit down, Brooklyn, please. She sat, and she started talking. Brooklyn didn't plan to tell him everything. She'd practiced being vague, being careful, sharing only what was necessary, and nothing that could be used against her. But something about the way Colton listened, the way he held her son with such gentleness, the way he didn't interrupt or judge, it broke down her carefully constructed walls. The story came pouring out. I was a pediatric nurse. Brooklyn started there, at Seattle Children's Hospital. I loved my job. I was good at it. I wanted to be a nurse since I was 8 years old. Colton nodded, listening. I married the wrong person, Marcus Hayes. I didn't see it at first. Nobody did. He was charming, successful, but after the wedding, things changed. He became controlling, then cruel, then violent. Brooklyn watched Colton's jaw tighten, but he didn't speak. When Bentley was born, I thought maybe it would get better. It got worse. By the time Bentley was 2, I was planning to leave. I was being careful, documenting everything, saving money. And then Marcus found out. What did he do? Colton's voice was carefully controlled. He destroyed my career. Brooklyn's hands clenched in her lap. There was an incident at the hospital. A child was given an incorrect medication dosage. The records showed I was the nurse responsible. But I didn't do it. The logs were altered. Marcus works for the pharmaceutical company that makes that medication. He had access to hospital systems. He had the knowledge. And he had the motive. He framed you. The hospital couldn't prove it either way, but they also couldn't risk keeping me on staff. My nursing license was suspended. My career was over. And Marcus used my job loss to win custody. Of his own son? Primary custody. I get supervised visitation 3 times a week. Brooklyn's voice cracked. I went from being a respected nurse to cleaning office buildings at night. From having my son every day to having him for a few hours under someone else's watch. And Bentley, he watched me break down. He watched the police come to our house during the investigation. He watched me cry so hard I couldn't breathe. And he stopped talking. The psychologist says it's selective mutism, trauma-induced. His brain decided that staying quiet was safer than speaking, that making himself invisible was the only way to protect himself. Tears were streaming down Brooklyn's face now. She didn't bother wiping them away. I've been fighting for a year, fighting to get my license back, fighting to prove Marcus framed me, fighting for custody. But I can't afford a good lawyer. I can't prove what Marcus did. And every day that passes, I'm losing more ground. The court sees a stable father with a good job and an unstable mother who lost her career. They don't see the truth. They just see what looks like evidence. She finally looked up at Colton. So that's why I'm here at midnight cleaning offices. That's why I had to bring my son to work when my babysitter canceled. That's why I can't afford any more trouble. I'm barely holding on as it is. The office was quiet. Bentley had fallen asleep in Colton's arms, exhausted from the emotional breakthrough of speaking again. Colton looked down at the sleeping child, then back at Brooklyn. Why did he call me daddy? Brooklyn wiped her face. I don't know. He's never met Marcus's family. His father barely sees him, even with the custody arrangement. Maybe you look safe to him somehow. No, Colton said softly. There's a reason. He said he saw a baby picture on my desk. Brooklyn frowned. I didn't see a picture. Colton shifted carefully, trying not to wake Bentley. He reached for a frame on his desk, turned it toward Brooklyn. It wasn't a baby picture. It was an ultrasound image. 20 weeks, clear enough to see the profile of a tiny face, the curve of a small hand. Brooklyn's breath caught. My wife? Colton's voice was quiet, steady but clearly controlled. Elise, she died 4 years ago. Childbirth complications. Emergency C-section at 32 weeks. Our son was born alive, but he was too small. Too early. He lived for 6 hours. I got to hold him. Once. And then he was gone. The baby in this picture. Colton traced the frame with one finger. This was taken a few months before, when everything was still perfect. When we thought we'd be parents. When I thought I'd have the family I'd always wanted. He set the frame back down carefully. After they died, the doctors told me I'm infertile, a complication from an illness I had as a child. Elise getting pregnant had been a miracle, a 1 in a million chance. It will never happen again. I'm so sorry, Brooklyn whispered. I built an empire trying to fill the hole they left. Colton looked around his expensive office. All of this, the company, the success, the money. It means nothing when you go home to an empty house. When you've got nobody to build anything for. He looked down at Bentley sleeping against his chest. And then tonight, this little boy walks into my office, calls me daddy, and for 3 seconds, I let myself believe it. I let myself imagine what it would be like if this were real, if I actually had a son who looked at me like I was safe, like I mattered beyond my bank account. That's why you're being so kind, Brooklyn said slowly, because he reminds you of what you lost. No, Colton met her eyes. I'm being kind because you're both exactly where I was 4 years ago, broken, fighting an unwinnable battle, doing everything you can to survive even when survival feels impossible. I'm being kind because I know what it's like to have the system fail you, to lose everything that matters, to wonder if you'll ever feel whole again. Brooklyn felt something crack open in her chest. This man understood, actually understood. Why did Bentley stop talking 8 months ago specifically? Colton asked. What happened 8 months ago? The final custody hearing. Brooklyn's voice was barely above a whisper. The judge gave Marcus primary custody. I came home and I shattered, completely broke down in front of Bentley. He was trying to comfort me and I couldn't stop crying, couldn't breathe. I scared him so badly. And he hasn't spoken since. Until tonight. Brooklyn looked at her son sleeping peacefully, until he saw you and felt safe enough to speak. Why me? I don't know, Brooklyn admitted. Maybe because you knelt down. Maybe because you were gentle. Maybe because somehow a 4-year-old could sense that you understand what loss feels like. Or maybe, Colton said slowly, maybe he could sense that I'd never hurt him, that I'd protect him if I could, that I'm someone who values what you're fighting for. Brooklyn studied Colton's face. This billionaire CEO holding her sleeping son like he was precious, like he mattered. Why are you really being so kind? She asked. You could have called security, could have had me fired, could have made this a disaster for me. Why didn't you? Because, Colton said carefully, when Bentley called me daddy, something happened to me, something I didn't expect. For the first time in 4 years, I felt something other than grief. I felt hope. And then, when he told me about you, about a mama who cries every day, about being scared and looking for safety, I saw myself. I saw Elise. I saw everything I lost. He paused. I can't get my family back. But maybe I can help yours. Maybe that's why this happened. Why Bentley wandered into my office tonight. Why he spoke for the first time in 8 months. Maybe some things are meant to be. Brooklyn's heart was hammering. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to help you, Colton said. I want to hire the lawyer you need. I want to investigate your ex-husband. I want to find proof of what he did. And I want to do everything in my power to help you get your son back, and your career back, and your life back. I can't accept charity. It's not charity. It's investment. Colton looked down at Bentley. This kid spoke tonight because he felt safe, because something about me made him believe he could trust again. That's worth more than money. That's worth fighting for. Brooklyn was crying again, but these were different tears. These were hope and terror and the terrifying possibility that maybe she wasn't alone anymore. Why would you do this for people you don't even know? Because I know loss, Colton said simply. And I know what it's like to have nobody fight for you. After Elise and our son died, everyone told me to move on, get over it, build my company, find someone new. Like grief had an expiration date. Like the people you love can just be replaced. Nobody fought for me to be allowed to grieve, to be broken, to take the time I needed. I had to fight alone. He met Brooklyn's eyes. You shouldn't have to fight alone, and neither should Bentley. So I'm asking you, let me help. Let me be someone who shows up, who fights alongside you, who proves that sometimes the right person comes into your life exactly when you need them most. Brooklyn looked at this man, this stranger who somehow felt like he'd known her son forever, this billionaire who looked at her like she was worth believing in. She thought about pride, about fear, about all the reasons she should say no. And then she thought about Bentley, about giving him every possible chance at the life he deserved. Okay, Brooklyn whispered. Okay, help us. Colton smiled. It was the first genuine smile Brooklyn had seen on his face. It transformed him from intimidating CEO to someone who looked almost young, almost vulnerable. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for seeing us. They sat there in the quiet office, Brooklyn in her cleaning uniform, Colton in his expensive suit, Bentley sleeping peacefully between them, and something shifted in the universe. Something small, but powerful. Like the first crack in a dam that would eventually break open and change the entire landscape. Neither of them knew it yet, but this was the beginning of everything. The investigation that would expose Marcus Hayes, the conspiracy that would uncover a massive pharmaceutical fraud, the love story that would heal two devastatingly broken hearts. All because a 4-year-old boy wandered into the wrong office and said one word, Daddy. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. Sometimes the people who save you are the ones you least expect. And sometimes 3 seconds of silence can change absolutely everything. If this story is already breaking your heart and you're wondering what happens next, I need you to do something for me. I need you to hit that like button. Not for me. For every single parent out there fighting an impossible battle. For everyone who's been destroyed by someone they trusted. For everyone who's lost hope and needs to be reminded that sometimes miracles happen in the most unexpected ways. Your like tells the algorithm that this story matters. That these themes of redemption and second chances and chosen family need to be heard. So please, take 2 seconds, hit that button, and let's make sure this message reaches the people who need it most. Now let me tell you what happened next, because the story's just getting started. The next morning, Brooklyn woke up in her studio apartment, with Bentley curled against her side, and the overwhelming feeling that last night had been a dream. Except it wasn't a dream, because her phone had 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize, and there was a text message that made her heart start racing all over again. It was from Colton Pierce. Good morning, Brooklyn. I hope you and Bentley slept well. I'd like to meet with you today to discuss next steps. Can you come to my office at 2? I'll have my assistant arrange childcare for Bentley if needed. Or he's welcome to come. Whatever makes you comfortable. Brooklyn read the message 5 times. Her hands were shaking. This was real. Last night had actually happened. A billionaire CEO had held her sleeping son and promised to help them fight an unwinnable battle. And now he wanted to meet, to discuss next steps. Terror and hope warred in Brooklyn's chest. She texted back with trembling fingers. I can be there at 2. I'll bring Bentley. Thank you. The response came immediately. See you then. And Brooklyn, thank you for trusting me. Brooklyn spent the next 6 hours in a state of anxious preparation. She showered and tried to make herself look professional, even though she didn't own professional clothes anymore. Everything from her nursing days had been sold or donated during the months when she couldn't afford rent. She settled on the nicest jeans she owned and a sweater that didn't have any stains. Bentley was different that morning. He still wasn't talking constantly. The psychologist had warned Brooklyn that selective mutism didn't just disappear overnight, but he was making sounds, humming while he played with his dinosaurs, saying yes and no when Brooklyn asked him questions. "Baby, we're going to see Mr. Pierce today, the man from last night. Do you remember him?" Bentley nodded. His face lit up. "Daddy Colton?" Brooklyn's breath caught. "He's not your daddy, sweetheart. He's a friend, a very kind friend who's going to help us. He feels like a daddy," Bentley said with the simple certainty of a 4-year-old who knew things adults couldn't explain. Brooklyn didn't know how to respond to that, so she just kissed his forehead and got him dressed in his nicest clothes. They arrived at Pierce Global Industries at exactly 2 in the afternoon. This time, they walked through the front door. This time, Brooklyn wasn't wearing a cleaning uniform. This time, the receptionist smiled at them and said, "Mr. Pierce is expecting you. Please follow me." The elevator ride to the 68th floor felt surreal. Bentley held Brooklyn's hand and hummed a song she didn't recognize. He seemed calm, happy even. Brooklyn felt like she might throw up from nerves. The receptionist led them to Colton's office, the same office where Bentley had found him last night. In the daylight, it was even more impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the Seattle skyline, furniture that belonged in architectural magazines, success displayed in every carefully chosen detail. And in the middle of it all, Colton Pierce stood up from behind his desk when they entered. He was wearing another expensive suit, but he'd lost the tie. The top button of his shirt was undone. He looked somehow more human than he had last night. "Brooklyn," he smiled. "Bentley, thank you for coming." Bentley let go of Brooklyn's hand and walked straight to Colton. "Hi." "Hi, buddy." Colton knelt down immediately. "Did you bring Spike?" Bentley held up his dinosaur. "He's a little scared. This is a very big building." "It is a very big building. But you know what? You're safe here, both of you." Colton looked up at Brooklyn. "Please sit. I have some things I want to discuss with you." Brooklyn sat in one of the leather chairs. Bentley climbed into Colton's lap like they'd known each other for years instead of hours. Colton didn't seem to mind. He settled Bentley comfortably and then focused on Brooklyn. "I made some calls this morning. I hope you don't mind." Brooklyn's stomach clenched. "What kind of calls?" "I have a friend who's a family law attorney, one of the best in the state. I told her about your situation. Not all the details, just enough. She's willing to take your case." "I can't afford." "Pro bono," Colton interrupted gently. "She owes me a favor, a big one. She's agreed to represent you in your custody case and in getting your nursing license reinstated. She's good, Brooklyn. Really good." Brooklyn felt tears burning behind her eyes. "Why would you do that?" "Because I meant what I said last night." Colton's expression was serious. "I want to help, but there's more." "More?" "I want to hire you." Brooklyn blinked. "I already work here. Night cleaning crew." "No." Colton shook his head. "I want to hire you as my executive assistant." Brooklyn stared at him. I don't have experience. I'm a nurse, not a..." "You're intelligent. You're organized. You're someone who can handle high-pressure situations. Those are the qualities I need. The rest you can learn." Brooklyn's mind was racing. "Why would you really do this?" Colton was quiet for a moment. He looked down at Bentley, who was playing with Spike and humming contentedly. "Honestly, because having you work night shifts while fighting a custody battle isn't sustainable. You need a job with better pay and daytime hours. You need stability that a court will recognize. And selfishly," Colton met her eyes, "I want you and Bentley around. I want to be part of this journey. I want to help in a real, tangible way." Brooklyn's voice came out barely above a whisper. "I don't understand why you care so much." "When I lost Elise and my son." Colton's voice was rough with emotion. "I lost my purpose. I built this company, made more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But none of it meant anything because I had nobody to build it for. Last night, when Bentley called me daddy, I felt something I haven't felt in 4 years. Purpose. Like maybe I could be the person he needs. Like maybe helping you fight this battle could give my success actual meaning. He paused. I'm not trying to replace his father. I'm not trying to buy your trust or manipulate you into anything. I just want to help. And if that means giving you a job and paying for a lawyer and using my resources to investigate your ex-husband, then that's what I want to do. Investigate Marcus? Brooklyn's eyes went wide. I have a corporate investigator on retainer, Colton said. If Marcus framed you by altering hospital records, he committed fraud, possibly multiple crimes. If we can prove it, we can get your nursing license back and destroy his custody case. You'd do that? I already started. Colton pulled out a folder from his desk. My investigator made some preliminary calls this morning. Marcus works for Westridge Pharmaceuticals, correct? Brooklyn nodded. He's a regional sales director, makes good money, has access to hospital systems through his sales relationships. And here's something interesting. Colton opened the folder. In the past 3 years, there have been 7 medication incidents at hospitals in Marcus's sales region, all involving Westridge medications, all with altered records, all with nurses who were subsequently fired or had licenses suspended. Brooklyn's blood went cold. 7? 7 that we found in a few hours of digging. There might be more. Colton's expression was grim. I don't think Marcus framed you because you were leaving him. I think he framed you because you were about to discover something much bigger, a pattern of fraud that's been destroying careers and possibly hurting patients. Brooklyn's hand went to her mouth. Oh my God. If we can prove this, we don't just get your license back. We put Marcus in prison. We protect other nurses. We expose a corporate conspiracy. Colton leaned forward. But I need your help. I need you to work with my investigator. Share everything you remember. Help us build a case that's airtight. Brooklyn's mind was reeling. This was bigger than she'd imagined. More dangerous. More complicated. She looked at Bentley, safe and content in Colton's arms. She thought about 7 other nurses whose lives had been destroyed. 7 other people who might still think they'd made terrible mistakes. 7 other families torn apart by Marcus's greed and manipulation. Okay, Brooklyn said. I'll help. I'll take the job. I'll work with your investigator. I'll do whatever it takes. Colton smiled. Good. You start Monday. My assistant Quinn will get you set up with everything you need. Salary is $120,000 a year. Brooklyn nearly fell out of her chair. That's more than I made as a nurse. You're worth it, Colton said simply. And you need financial stability for the custody case. There was a knock on the door. A person walked in. Mid-30s, professional, with kind eyes and an efficient manner. Brooklyn, this is Quinn, my current executive assistant. They're going to train you and then transition to a different role in the company. Quinn smiled at Brooklyn. Looking forward to working with you. And this must be Bentley. Bentley waved shyly. I have a 4-year-old too, Quinn said. Maybe they can have a playdate sometime. Bentley looked up at Colton. Can Spike come to the playdate? Absolutely, Colton said seriously. Spike is welcome everywhere. And just like that, Brooklyn's life began to transform. The first week of Brooklyn's new life felt like living in someone else's reality. Monday morning, she walked into Pierce Global Industries not as a cleaning woman but as an executive assistant. Quinn met her with a security badge, a company laptop, and a smile that suggested they knew exactly how overwhelming this was. Deep breath, Quinn said. You're going to be fine. Colton doesn't hire people he doesn't believe in. I don't know anything about being an executive assistant. Neither did I when I started, Quinn grinned. That's the secret. Half of this job is just being organized and calm, while everything around you is chaos. You were a pediatric nurse. You can handle chaos. Quinn was right. The job was demanding, but Brooklyn discovered she was good at it. Managing Colton's schedule, screening his calls, organizing meetings, preparing briefs. It required the same attention to detail and multitasking she'd used in nursing, just with fewer medical emergencies and more corporate negotiations. But the most surprising part wasn't the job itself, it was watching Colton with Bentley. Brooklyn had arranged for Bentley to attend a high-quality daycare near the office, the kind of place she'd never been able to afford before. But Colton had a different idea. "There's a child care center in the building," he'd told her that first day, "for employees with young children. Bentley's welcome there, and if he needs you, you're just an elevator ride away." It was perfect, almost too perfect. And every day at lunch, Colton would appear in Brooklyn's office doorway. "I'm going to grab Bentley for lunch. Want to join us?" At first, Brooklyn thought it was just kindness, just Colton making sure they were settling in. But as the week progressed, she realized it was more than that. Colton genuinely enjoyed spending time with Bentley. He'd take him to the cafeteria and they'd eat together. Colton listening intently while Bentley chattered about dinosaurs and space and whatever 4-year-olds found fascinating. Sometimes they'd eat in Colton's office, and Bentley would draw pictures at the coffee table while Colton worked. Brooklyn would watch them through the glass walls and feel her heart doing complicated things. By Wednesday, Bentley was talking constantly. The selective mutism hadn't disappeared completely. He still went quiet in unfamiliar situations, or when he felt unsafe. But around Colton, around Brooklyn, around Quinn and the friendly daycare workers, Bentley was blooming. "Mama, can Colton come to dinner?" Bentley asked Wednesday evening as Brooklyn picked him up. "Baby, Colton's very busy." "I'd love to come to dinner." Colton appeared behind them. "If the invitation's open." Brooklyn turned, surprised. "You don't have to." "I'd like to," Colton said simply. "Unless you'd prefer I didn't." Brooklyn thought about her tiny studio apartment, about how embarrassing it would be for a billionaire to see how she actually lived. Then she thought about Bentley's hopeful face. "Okay," she said, "but I'm warning you, it's not fancy, and dinner is probably going to be spaghetti, because that's all I have time to make." Spaghetti is perfect. That evening, Colton Pierce sat in Brooklyn's cramped studio apartment at her secondhand table and ate spaghetti with plastic forks because she only owned 3 real ones and one had broken last week. He didn't seem to notice the peeling paint or the lumpy futon or the fact that her entire apartment could fit inside his office bathroom. He just listened to Bentley explain the entire plot of his favorite dinosaur movie and complimented Brooklyn's cooking like she'd served him something from a 5-star restaurant. "This is really good," Colton said. "I can't remember the last time I had a home-cooked meal." "You're a billionaire," Brooklyn said. "You could hire a personal chef." "I have hired personal chefs. They make complicated things with foam and edible flowers." Colton smiled. "This is better. This feels like home." After dinner, Bentley insisted on showing Colton his dinosaur collection. All 17 dinosaurs, each with names and detailed backstories. Colton sat on the floor of Brooklyn's apartment in his expensive suit and listened to every single story with complete attention. Brooklyn watched from the kitchen while she washed dishes and felt something dangerous happening in her chest. She was falling for him. Not because of his money, not because he was helping her, but because of the way he looked at her son, the way he listened like Bentley's words mattered, the way he'd seamlessly become part of their lives like he'd always belonged there. It was terrifying. Bentley fell asleep on Colton's lap halfway through, explaining the difference between a brachiosaurus and a brontosaurus. "He's out," Colton said softly. "Where should I put him?" Brooklyn pointed to the small bed in the corner, the only real bed in the apartment. She slept on the futon. Colton carried Bentley carefully and tucked him in with a gentleness that made Brooklyn's throat tight. When he came back to the kitchen area, his expression was serious. "Brooklyn, why don't you have a bed?" "I do have a bed. Bentley's bed." "You sleep on that futon." "It's fine." "It's not fine. You're working full-time and fighting a custody battle and sleeping on a broken futon." It's what I can afford. Colton was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? Okay. When was the last time someone took care of you? The question hit Brooklyn like a physical blow. She thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know, she whispered. I've been taking care of myself and Bentley for so long, I don't remember what it feels like to have someone take care of me. Let me, Colton said. Please, let me take care of both of you. Brooklyn's defenses went up immediately. I'm not a charity case. I know you're not. That's not what I'm offering. Then what are you offering? Colton stepped closer. His blue eyes were intense, honest. I'm offering partnership, friendship, a chance for both of us to stop being so alone. You need help fighting Marcus and rebuilding your life. I need purpose beyond building wealth. We can help each other. This feels like more than friendship, Brooklyn said quietly. Maybe it is, Colton admitted. Maybe it's becoming more than I planned. But I'm not going to apologize for caring about you and Bentley. I'm not going to pretend I don't look forward to seeing you every day, that having lunch with Bentley isn't the best part of my week. Colton, Brooklyn's voice shook. I can't be what you need. I'm broken. I'm a disaster. I come with so much baggage and complications. You're not broken. You're surviving impossible circumstances with grace and strength. And your complications? Colton smiled slightly. They come with a 4-year-old who thinks I'm safe, who called me daddy and made me feel human again. I'll take those complications any day. Brooklyn felt tears streaming down her face. I'm scared. Me too, Colton said. I'm terrified. I lost everyone I loved. I swore I'd never risk my heart again. But then you walked into my life, and suddenly I'm rearranging my schedule for lunch with a 4-year-old and eating spaghetti in a studio apartment and feeling more alive than I've felt in years. What are we doing? Brooklyn whispered. I think, Colton said slowly, we're building something. I don't know what it looks like yet, but I know it feels right, and I know I don't want to stop. Brooklyn looked at this man who'd appeared in her life like an answer to prayers she'd been too afraid to pray. I don't want to stop either, she admitted. Colton reached out and gently wiped the tears from her face. Then let's not stop. Let's just keep going. One day at a time. No pressure. No expectations. Just this. Okay, Brooklyn breathed. One day at a time. Colton left shortly after. But before he did, he paused at the door. Brooklyn, the investigator wants to meet with you Friday. Are you ready? To face everything Marcus did? To dig into the fraud? Brooklyn squared her shoulders. Yes, I'm ready. Good. Because we're going to take him down. All of them. And we're going to get your life back. After he left, Brooklyn sat on her lumpy futon in her tiny apartment and let herself hope. Really hope. For the first time in a year, she believed that maybe, possibly, everything might actually be okay. You know what strikes me most about this part of the story? It's not the money or the dramatic rescue. It's the small moments. Colton sitting on a studio apartment floor, listening to dinosaur facts. Brooklyn letting someone see her weakness. Bentley feeling safe enough to speak. These are the moments that actually change lives. Not the grand gestures, but the quiet choice to show up, to be present, to see people as worthy of time and attention regardless of what they can offer in return. If you've ever been the person who needed someone to just show up, or if you've been the person who showed up for someone else, I want you to comment below and share that story, because those stories matter. They remind us that we're not alone, and they inspire others to be the person who shows up. So comment, share. Let's build a community of people who understand that real love is found in the small moments. Friday afternoon, Brooklyn sat in a conference room with Colton, his investigator, and a stack of evidence that made her feel physically sick. The investigator's name was Skylar Chen, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of intensity that suggested they didn't miss anything. Miss Hayes. Skylar opened a laptop. I'm going to show you some things that might be difficult to see. If you need to take a break at any time, just say so. Brooklyn nodded. She was ready, or as ready as she'd ever be. Skylar pulled up the first document. This is the medication incident report from Seattle Children's Hospital, the one that led to your license suspension. Brooklyn had seen it before. The report that claimed she'd administered an incorrect dosage of sedation medication to a 6-year-old patient. The child had experienced complications. The family had threatened legal action. The hospital had investigated and found Brooklyn's signature on medication logs that showed a dosage 3 times higher than prescribed. I didn't make that error, Brooklyn said. I know what the logs say, but I didn't do it. I believe you, Skylar said. Because, look at this. They pulled up another document. This is the digital metadata from the hospital system. It shows when entries are made and when they're modified. Your original entry was correct, 0.5 milligrams. Exactly what was prescribed. Brooklyn leaned forward. Then how? Someone with administrative access modified the entry 6 hours after you made it, changed 0.5 to 1.5. Skylar highlighted the modification timestamp. And then they altered the audit log to hide the change. Who has that kind of access? Hospital administrators, IT staff, and pharmaceutical sales representatives with contracted access to inventory management systems. Marcus, Brooklyn breathed. Your ex-husband had legitimate access to the hospital's pharmaceutical tracking system through his role at Westridge. Skylar pulled up more documents. He was there that day, signed in for a sales meeting. Had 45 minutes of unaccounted time in the administrative wing. He framed me. He framed you, Skylar confirmed. But here's where it gets worse. Worse? Colton spoke up. His voice was tight with controlled anger. Tell her what else you found. Skylar pulled up a spreadsheet. I cross-referenced medication incidents at hospitals in Marcus Hayes' sales territory over the past 5 years. I found 13 cases where nurses were accused of dosage errors involving Westridge medications. 13 nurses who lost their jobs or had licenses suspended. Brooklyn's hand went to her mouth. In every case, Skylar continued, the nurse had recently reported concerns about medication quality, or had noticed discrepancies in inventory, or had questioned unusual prescription patterns. They were silenced, Brooklyn said. All of them. They saw something wrong, and Marcus destroyed their careers to cover it up. That's the theory. But it's worse than individual fraud. Skylar's expression was grim. I think Marcus is part of a much larger conspiracy. They pulled up financial records. Westridge Pharmaceuticals has been systematically diluting their medications to increase profit margins. They're selling products that are 20 to 30% less effective than labeled. Patients aren't getting the dosages they need. In some cases, this has led to serious complications. Brooklyn felt rage building in her chest. Children have been hurt. Yes. And when medical professionals started noticing, Westridge used people like Marcus to silence them, frame them, destroy their credibility so nobody would believe their concerns. How many people? Brooklyn demanded. How many patients have been hurt? How many medical professionals have been destroyed? We're still calculating, but conservatively, hundreds of patients, dozens of destroyed careers, and millions of dollars in fraudulent profits. Brooklyn stood up. She couldn't sit anymore. The rage and horror were too much. We have to stop them. We have to expose this. We will, Colton said. But we need to be smart. We need evidence that will hold up in court. Evidence that will take down not just Marcus, but the entire conspiracy. What do you need from me? Brooklyn asked. Everything you remember, Skylar said. Every conversation with Marcus about his work. Every detail about the incident at the hospital. Every piece of documentation you still have. Brooklyn spent the next 3 hours walking Skylar through everything. Every painful detail. Every moment of the nightmare that had destroyed her life. Colton stayed the entire time. He didn't have to. He had a company to run. 1,000 other demands on his time. But he stayed. And when Brooklyn's voice started shaking, when the memories became too much, he was there. Steady, solid, a reminder that she wasn't fighting alone anymore. By the time they finished, it was evening. Skylar had pages of notes and a plan of action. "I'm going to coordinate with federal prosecutors," Skylar said. "This is beyond local jurisdiction. This is healthcare fraud on a massive scale. The FBI will want to be involved." "How long until we have a case?" Brooklyn asked. "If everything goes well, 2 to 3 months to build something airtight." "And Marcus?" "He doesn't know we're investigating." Skylar smiled grimly. "Let's keep it that way. Let him think he's safe. Let him get comfortable. And then we'll take him down so hard he'll never see daylight outside a prison cell again." After Skylar left, Brooklyn and Colton sat alone in the conference room. "Are you okay?" Colton asked quietly. "No," Brooklyn said honestly. "I'm furious. I'm heartbroken. I'm thinking about all those other nurses, all those patients, all the damage Marcus has done. But you're also relieved." Brooklyn looked at him. "How did you know?" "Because now you have proof. Now you know you weren't crazy. You didn't fail. You were right all along." Tears spilled down Brooklyn's face. "I thought maybe I had made a mistake. Maybe I'd gotten distracted or tired, or maybe I really had hurt that child." "You didn't," Colton said fiercely. "You were set up by criminals who valued profit over human life. That's not on you. That's on them." Brooklyn wiped her face. "Thank you for believing me, for helping me find the truth. Thank you for being brave enough to fight." Colton reached across the table and took her hand. "A lot of people would have given up, accepted the loss, moved on. But you didn't. You kept fighting for yourself and for Bentley. Because I had to. No, you fought because you're strong, because you're someone who doesn't accept injustice. And now that strength is going to take down a criminal empire." Brooklyn looked at their joined hands. "What happens next?" "Next," Colton said, "we wait while Skylar and the FBI build the case. We continue with your custody battle. We live our lives, and we let Marcus think he's won. That's going to be hard. Seeing him at custody exchanges, letting him think he's gotten away with it. I know, but you won't be alone. I'll be with you, every step." Brooklyn met his eyes. "Why are you doing all this? Really?" Colton was quiet for a long moment. "When Elise died," he said finally, "I wanted to die too. I wanted to just stop existing because a world without her felt impossible. But I had the company, employees depending on me, responsibilities. So I kept going, but I was empty inside, just going through the motions. And then Bentley called me Daddy, and I felt something. Purpose, hope, a reason to be alive beyond just existing." He squeezed her hand. "You and Bentley gave me that. You made me remember what it feels like to care about something beyond money and success. You made me remember what it feels like to be needed, to matter to someone. So I'm doing this because I want to. Because fighting for you and Bentley is the first thing that's felt meaningful in 4 years." Brooklyn's voice was barely a whisper. "I think I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. Vulnerable, terrifying, true. Colton stood up. He walked around the table. He pulled Brooklyn to her feet. And then he kissed her. It wasn't their first kiss, but it felt like a promise, like a declaration, like two broken people choosing to build something beautiful out of their shared wreckage. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Colton pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm already in love with you," he whispered. "I have been since the night Bentley fell asleep in my arms, and you trusted me enough to tell me your story. I just didn't want to rush you. Didn't want to pressure you when you were already dealing with so much." Brooklyn laughed through her tears. "We're really doing this? Building something together while fighting a pharmaceutical conspiracy and a custody battle? Apparently. Colton smiled. We don't do anything the easy way. Bentley's going to be so happy. Bentley already knows. Kids always know. They stood there in the conference room holding each other, while the city lights sparkled outside and the weight of the coming battle loomed ahead. But for the first time in over a year, Brooklyn felt strong enough to face it. Because she wasn't alone anymore. She had Colton, she had evidence, she had hope. And she was about to make Marcus Hayes and everyone who'd helped him destroy innocent lives pay for every single crime they'd committed. The war was just beginning, but Brooklyn was ready. 3 weeks into Brooklyn's new life, everything shattered. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Brooklyn was in Colton's office reviewing his schedule for the following week when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something made her pick up. Brooklyn Hayes? The voice was cold. Professional. This is Jennifer Walsh from Child Protective Services. We need to schedule a home visit regarding your son, Bentley. Brooklyn's blood went cold. I'm sorry, what? Why? We've received a complaint about your living situation and your fitness as a parent. Standard procedure is to investigate. We'll need to inspect your home and interview you and your son. A complaint from who? I'm not at liberty to say. We'll be in touch to schedule the visit. The line went dead. Brooklyn sat frozen. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped her phone. Colton looked up from his laptop. Brooklyn? What's wrong? CPS. Brooklyn's voice didn't sound like her own. Someone reported me. They're investigating my fitness as a parent. Marcus, Colton said immediately. He stood up. He found out about the job, about us, and he's retaliating. Before Brooklyn could respond, there was a commotion outside the office. Raised voices. Quinn trying to stop someone. The door burst open. Marcus Hayes walked in like he owned the place. Tall. Handsome in that calculated way that had once fooled Brooklyn into thinking he was a good man. Expensive suit. Confident smile. And behind him, 2 men in equally expensive suits who had lawyer written all over them. Brooklyn. Marcus's voice was smooth, condescending. I heard you got yourself a new job. How nice. Get out. Brooklyn stood up. You have no right to be here. Actually, I have every right to ensure my son's mother isn't making decisions that affect his well-being. Marcus looked at Colton. You must be Colton Pierce. The billionaire who's been playing house with my wife. Ex-wife, Brooklyn said through gritted teeth. Is she? Marcus smiled. Because the divorce isn't final yet, sweetheart. Which means you're still legally married to me while shacking up with him. One of the lawyers stepped forward. Mr. Pierce, I'm David Morrison. I represent Mr. Hayes. We're here to inform you that we'll be filing for full custody of Bentley Hayes based on his mother's unstable living situation and inappropriate relationship with her employer. You can't do this! Brooklyn felt panic rising in her chest. We absolutely can. Marcus's smile was vicious. You're living in poverty while working for a man you're clearly sleeping with. That's not a stable environment for our son. I'm not, Brooklyn started, but Marcus cut her off. Don't lie. I have photos of him leaving your apartment at 9 at night, of you kissing him in this very building. You're prostituting yourself for money and job security, and I'm not going to let our son be exposed to that. Watch your mouth. Colton's voice was deadly quiet. He moved to stand between Marcus and Brooklyn. You don't get to talk to her like that. And you don't get to play daddy to my son. Marcus's mask slipped. Brooklyn could see the rage underneath, the control he was barely maintaining. You're a stranger. A rich stranger buying my wife's affection while pretending to care about my kid? He turned to Brooklyn. You think this is going to work? You think a judge is going to side with a nurse who lost her license and is sleeping with her boss over a stable father with a clean record? Your record isn't clean, Colton said. We know what you did. We know about the fraud. Marcus's eyes flickered. Just for a second. but it was enough to show he was worried. I have no idea what you're talking about. The medication records you altered, the nurses you framed, the patients who were hurt because Westridge has been diluting their products. Marcus laughed, but it sounded forced. That's quite a conspiracy theory. Do you have any proof? We're building a case. Then I guess we'll see each other in court. Marcus gestured to his lawyers. Come on, we're done here. But before he left, he looked at Brooklyn one more time. You're going to lose everything, just like you deserve. They left. Brooklyn stood there shaking. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. And then she heard a small voice from the doorway. Mama? Brooklyn's heart stopped. Bentley stood in the doorway with Quinn behind him, looking apologetic and horrified. Her son had heard everything. The yelling, the threats, the anger. Bentley's face was pale. His eyes were wide with fear. Baby, Brooklyn rushed to him. It's okay. Everything's okay. But it wasn't okay, because Bentley opened his mouth and no sound came out. He tried again. Nothing. The selective mutism was back. Bentley started crying. Silent, terrified, tears streaming down his face. He was trying to speak, but the words wouldn't come. The trauma had locked them away again. Brooklyn scooped him up. She was crying too. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. You're safe. You're safe. But she didn't feel safe. She felt like everything was falling apart. Quinn ushered them into a private office. Colton followed, but Brooklyn couldn't look at him. This was her fault. She'd let Colton into their lives. She'd let herself believe things could be different. She'd let Bentley get attached. And now Marcus was using it all against her. I need to go, Brooklyn said. She was still holding Bentley, who had his face buried in her shoulder. I need to take Bentley home. Brooklyn, wait. Colton reached for her, but she stepped back. Don't, please. This is exactly what Marcus wanted. He wanted to prove I'm unstable, that I make bad decisions, that I'm not fit to be Bentley's mother. You are an amazing mother. Then why does my son stop speaking every time my life falls apart? Brooklyn's voice broke. Why can't I protect him from this? Let me help. You've helped enough. Brooklyn felt something cracking inside her. This whole thing, this job, this relationship, it was a mistake. I should have known better. I should have stayed invisible. You don't mean that. Yes, I do. Brooklyn looked at Colton and felt her heart breaking. I can't do this. I can't risk losing Bentley because I was stupid enough to believe in fairy tales. Billionaires don't actually save broken single mothers. That's not how the real world works. Brooklyn, I quit, Brooklyn said, effective immediately. Thank you for everything you've done, but I can't accept your help anymore. I have to fight this battle on my own. She walked out. Colton didn't try to stop her. Maybe he understood. Maybe he realized she was right. Or maybe he was just letting her go. Brooklyn took Bentley home to their studio apartment. She held her silent, traumatized son and cried until she couldn't breathe. And for the first time since Colton Pierce had entered her life, Brooklyn felt completely and utterly alone. The next 3 days were the worst of Brooklyn's life. Bentley wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat, barely slept. He cried for Daddy Colton, but couldn't say the words. He'd just point at Brooklyn's phone and sob. Brooklyn tried everything. The child psychologist came for an emergency session. They tried play therapy. They tried art therapy. They tried just sitting in silence while Bentley screamed without sound. Nothing worked. Brooklyn stopped sleeping. She'd lie on her futon, staring at the ceiling while Bentley tossed fitfully in his bed across the room. She'd replay every decision that had led her here. Every moment she'd let herself hope. Her phone rang constantly, Colton calling, Quinn calling, even the lawyer Colton had hired, trying to reach her. Brooklyn ignored them all. On the third day, the legal documents arrived. Marcus Hayes was filing for full custody. Emergency motion based on Brooklyn's unstable employment, inappropriate relationship with her employer, and failure to provide adequate housing. The court date was in 2 weeks. Brooklyn read the documents with shaking hands. Marcus's lawyers had been thorough. They had photos of Colton leaving her apartment, statements from unnamed witnesses claiming Brooklyn was neglecting Bentley. Even a psychological evaluation suggesting that Brooklyn's instability was causing Bentley's selective mutism. It was all lies, all carefully constructed manipulation. But it would work. Brooklyn knew it would work because the system wasn't designed to find truth. It was designed to favor whoever looked more stable on paper. And Marcus, with his good job and his expensive lawyers and his pristine public image, looked very stable. Brooklyn, broke and working for a billionaire she was clearly involved with, looked like a disaster. She was going to lose her son. The thought made her physically ill. She spent an hour in the bathroom throwing up while Bentley sat outside the door crying silent tears. "I'm sorry, baby," Brooklyn whispered through the door. "I'm so sorry. Mama's trying. I'm trying so hard." Her phone rang again. Another unknown number. Brooklyn almost didn't answer. But what if it was CPS? What if it was the court? She couldn't afford to miss important calls. She answered. "Miss Hayes, this is Sarah Chen from the King County Prosecutor's Office. I need to speak with you urgently about Marcus Hayes." Brooklyn's heart hammered. "What about him?" "Ma'am, I'm calling to inform you that Marcus Hayes was arrested this morning by the FBI. He's being charged with healthcare fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and 13 counts of obstruction of justice." Brooklyn dropped the phone. She picked it up with trembling hands. "What?" "The investigation that Colton Pierce initiated led to a federal case. We've been working with his investigator for the past 3 weeks. This morning, we had enough evidence for arrest warrants. Mr. Hayes is in federal custody. So are 6 executives from Westridge Pharmaceuticals." Brooklyn couldn't breathe. She couldn't process what she was hearing. "Additionally," the prosecutor continued, "we're moving to have all charges against you dismissed and your nursing license immediately reinstated. The evidence clearly shows you were framed. We're also contacting the 12 other nurses who were similarly targeted. You'll all be exonerated." Brooklyn started crying, full, gasping sobs. "I know this is overwhelming." The prosecutor's voice was kind. "Take some time to process, but I wanted you to know immediately. Your ex-husband won't be threatening custody anymore. He's looking at 20 years minimum in federal prison." After the call ended, Brooklyn sat on her bathroom floor and cried until she had nothing left. Marcus was arrested. She was exonerated. Her license would be reinstated. It was everything she'd been fighting for, and Colton had made it happen. Colton, who she'd pushed away, who she'd quit on, who she'd accused of not understanding the real world. He'd understood perfectly. He just kept fighting for her, even when she'd given up. Brooklyn's phone buzzed. A text message from a number she didn't recognize. "Miss Hayes, this is attorney Rebecca Morrison. Colton Pierce retained my firm to represent you. I've filed emergency motions to dismiss Marcus Hayes' custody case. Given his arrest, I expect the judge to grant you full custody within days. I'll be in touch with details. You're safe now. Your son is safe." Brooklyn held her phone and cried harder. There was a small knock on the bathroom door. "Mama?" Brooklyn's head snapped up. That was Bentley's voice. Quiet, scratchy from days of crying. But his voice. She opened the door. Bentley stood there with his dinosaur, tears on his face. "Mama, can we call Daddy Colton? I miss him." Brooklyn pulled her son into her arms. "Oh, baby. Yes, yes, we can call him." "But first," Bentley pulled back. His little face was so serious. "First you have to say sorry. You were mean. You pushed him away when he was trying to help." Brooklyn laughed through her tears. "You're absolutely right. I was mean. I was scared. And I pushed away someone who loves us." "Does he love us?" "I think so, baby." "Then we have to say sorry, and we have to tell him we love him too." Bentley said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "That's what you do when you love people. You don't push them away." out of the mouths of babes. When did you get so wise? I'm 4 3/4. I know lots of things. Brooklyn kissed his forehead. You're right. Let's go see Colton. Now? Right now. Brooklyn and Bentley took the bus to Pierce Global Industries. Brooklyn was still in sweatpants. Her hair was a mess. She probably looked like she'd been crying for 3 days because she didn't care. She walked into that gleaming lobby with her son's hand in hers and told the receptionist she needed to see Colton Pierce. Ma'am, do you have an appointment? No, but please tell him Brooklyn is here. He'll see me. 5 minutes later, Quinn appeared. Their face was carefully neutral, but their eyes were kind. He's in his office. Come with me. They rode the elevator to the 68th floor. Bentley hummed nervously. Brooklyn's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might explode. Quinn opened Colton's office door. Colton was standing at the window, phone to his ear. He turned when they entered. His face went through a dozen emotions in 3 seconds. Surprise, hope, relief, love. I'll call you back. He ended the call without looking away from Brooklyn. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Bentley let go of Brooklyn's hand and ran to Colton. Daddy Colton, I'm sorry we left. Mama was scared, but she's not scared anymore. Are you still our friend? Colton dropped to his knees and pulled Bentley into a fierce hug. I will always be your friend. Always. I promise. Good, because Mama needs to say sorry too, and she's nervous. Colton looked up at Brooklyn over Bentley's head. Brooklyn took a shaky breath. I need to say sorry, and I'm nervous because I was wrong and I hurt you and I don't know if you can forgive me. Colton stood up slowly, still holding Bentley. His blue eyes were locked on Brooklyn's face. You don't need to apologize. Yes, I do. Brooklyn's voice was shaking. I pushed you away. I quit. I accused you of not understanding reality when you were the only person actually fighting for me. I was cruel and wrong and you were terrified, Colton interrupted gently. You were a mother protecting her son the only way you knew how. There's nothing to forgive. There's everything to forgive. Brooklyn stepped closer. You hired investigators. You built a case. You got Marcus arrested. You saved my career and my custody rights and probably my life. And I repaid you by walking away. Actually, Colton set Bentley down. Buddy, can you go play with Quinn for a few minutes? I need to talk to your mama alone. Are you gonna kiss her? Bentley asked with 4-year-old directness. Maybe, if she'll let me. She'll let you, Bentley said confidently. She talks about you when she thinks I'm sleeping. She says you have kind eyes. Bentley, Brooklyn's face flushed red. Quinn appeared in the doorway. Come on, Bentley. I have dinosaur stickers in my office. After they left, Colton and Brooklyn stood facing each other. You talked about me? Colton asked. His lips twitched with the hint of a smile. Don't, Brooklyn said. Don't make this easier on me. I need to say this. I need you to understand how sorry I am. I was drowning, and you threw me a lifeline, and I threw it back in your face because I was too proud and too scared to accept help. Brooklyn, please let me finish. Brooklyn was crying now. I spent so long being hurt and betrayed that I forgot what it looked like when someone actually cared. When Marcus attacked, when he threatened to take Bentley, every defense mechanism I'd built kicked in. I pushed you away because that felt safer than trusting you. But it wasn't safer. It was just lonelier. Colton crossed the distance between them in 2 strides. He cupped her face in his hands and wiped away her tears with his thumbs. I understand why you did it. His voice was rough with emotion. I understand because I've done the same thing. After Elise died, I pushed away everyone who tried to help. I built walls so high nobody could reach me. It took a 4-year-old calling me daddy to crack them open. I'm not asking you to apologize for protecting yourself. I'm asking you to trust that I'm not going anywhere, that you can push me away and I'll still be here. That you can be scared and broken and messy, and I'll still fight for you. Why? Brooklyn whispered. Why do you care so much? Because I love you, Colton said simply. I love you, Brooklyn Hayes. I love your strength and your fierce protection of your son. I love the way you survive things that should have destroyed you. I love the way you see the world and fight for what's right, even when it costs you everything. I love the way you eat spaghetti and fall asleep on that terrible futon because you gave the only bed to your son. I love the way you look at me like I'm more than my bank account. Like I'm just a man worth caring about. Brooklyn, I fell in love with you the night Bentley called me daddy and you trusted me with your story, and I've been falling deeper every single day since. Brooklyn was full-on sobbing now. I love you too. I've been so scared to say it because everyone I've ever loved has hurt me, but I love you. I love how you listen to Bentley's dinosaur facts like they're the most important things in the world. I love how you sat on my floor in your expensive suit and didn't care. I love how you fought for me even when I pushed you away. Then stop pushing me away. Colton pressed his forehead to hers. Let me in. Let me love you and Bentley. Let me be part of your family. I'm broken, Brooklyn said. I'm a mess. I come with so much trauma and baggage. So am I. So do I. We can be broken together. We can heal together. What if I mess this up? What if I get scared again and push you away? Then I'll wait until you're ready to let me back in, however long it takes. That's not fair to you. Brooklyn, Colton smiled. Nothing about loving you has been fair. It's been terrifying and complicated and completely unpredictable. And it's the best thing that's happened to me in 4 years. I don't want fair. I want you. Brooklyn reached up and pulled him into a kiss. It was desperate and healing and full of all the words they hadn't said. Full of promises and hope and the terrifying beauty of two broken people choosing to be whole together. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Colton kept his arms wrapped around her. Marcus was arrested. Brooklyn said against his chest. I know. I was there. You were? I wanted to see his face when the FBI walked into Westridge headquarters. Colton's voice was satisfied. He tried to run. They tackled him in the parking lot. It was extremely satisfying. Brooklyn laughed. Actually laughed. That's probably wrong, but I'm glad. It's not wrong. He spent years hurting you and other innocent people. He deserves everything that's coming to him. The prosecutor said, I'll get my license back. You will. You'll also get full custody of Bentley. Marcus's custody petition was dismissed an hour ago. It's over, Brooklyn said wonderingly. It's actually over. The legal battle is over. Colton pulled back just enough to look at her. But our story is just beginning. Our story? I want this, Brooklyn. I want you and Bentley in my life. Not temporarily, not as charity, but permanently, as family. Family? I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a few weeks, but I also know that Bentley calls me daddy, and it feels right. I know that having you in my office every day makes the work meaningful. I know that eating spaghetti in your apartment feels more like home than my penthouse ever has. So I'm asking, can we build this? Can we take whatever this is and turn it into something permanent? Brooklyn looked at this man, this impossibly kind, generous, broken, beautiful man who'd appeared in her life at exactly the right moment. Yes, she said. Yes, let's build something permanent. The door burst open. Bentley came running in with Quinn behind him, looking apologetic. Did you kiss her? Bentley demanded. I did. Colton grinned. Good. Are you going to be my daddy for real now? If your mama says yes, and if you want me to be. Bentley looked at Brooklyn, then at Colton. Then he threw his arms around both of them. Yes, I want a daddy who has kind eyes and listens to my dinosaur facts and makes Mama smile. Then it's settled, Colton said. He pulled both of them close. We're a family. Quinn cleared their throat from the doorway. I hate to interrupt this beautiful moment, but you have a board meeting in 10 minutes. Cancel it, Colton said, without hesitation. You can't cancel a board meeting. Watch me. Today, my family is more important. Brooklyn pulled back. No, go to your meeting. We'll be here when you're done. Promise? Promise. Brooklyn kissed him softly. We're not going anywhere. Not ever again. Colton went to his meeting. Brooklyn and Bentley stayed in his office. They drew pictures and played with dinosaurs and waited. And when Colton came back an hour later, they were still there. Exactly where they belonged. Here's what I want you to understand about this moment in the story. This is where everything could have fallen apart. Brooklyn had every reason to stay gone, to protect herself, to decide that trusting Colton was too risky. But she didn't. She chose courage over fear. She chose love over self-protection. And that choice changed everything. Because real love isn't about never being scared. It's about being terrified and choosing to trust anyway. It's about being broken and letting someone help put you back together. If you've ever had to make that choice, to be vulnerable when every instinct screamed at you to hide, I want you to share this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that choosing love is always worth the risk. And comment below and tell me about a time when you chose courage over fear. Because those stories, those moments of bravery, they're what changed the world. One choice at a time. 6 months later, Brooklyn stood in front of the mirror in Colton's penthouse and barely recognized herself. She was wearing a dress that actually fit. Her hair was professionally styled. Her nursing license, fully reinstated, sat framed on the dresser behind her. Next to it was a photo from her first day back at Seattle Children's Hospital. The hospital had apologized publicly, offered her the head pediatric nurse position, given her everything they'd taken away. But that wasn't why she was smiling. She was smiling because she could hear Bentley in the next room, laughing, actually laughing. The kind of pure, uninhibited joy that only children can express. And she could hear Colton's deeper laugh in response. Mama. Bentley appeared in the doorway, wearing a miniature suit that matched Colton's. You look like a princess. Thank you, baby. Brooklyn knelt down to his level. You look very handsome. Daddy Colton says I'm the ring bearer. That's a very important job. It is. Very important. Because if I don't bring the rings, you can't get married. That's exactly right. Bentley leaned in close and whispered, Are you nervous? A little. Are you? No. Bentley shook his head seriously. Daddy Colton is already our family. Today we're just telling everyone else. Out of the mouths of babes. Brooklyn kissed his forehead. You're exactly right. Colton appeared behind Bentley. He was in a full tuxedo, and Brooklyn's breath caught because he was devastatingly handsome, and he was hers. We should go. The judge is waiting. Brooklyn stood. She smoothed down her dress. This is really happening. Having second thoughts? Colton asked, but his eyes were teasing. He knew her better now. Knew that when she was scared, she got quiet. When she was happy, she smiled like she was now. Not even for a second. They decided on a small ceremony, just Quinn as a witness. Judge Morrison, the family court judge who'd granted Brooklyn full custody and had been so moved by their story that she'd offered to officiate the wedding. And Bentley, of course. Because this wasn't just Brooklyn marrying Colton. This was the three of them becoming a legal family. The ceremony was held in the same courthouse where Brooklyn had fought for custody, where she'd faced Marcus and his lawyers and thought she'd lose everything. Today, she was gaining everything. Judge Morrison smiled at them. We're gathered here for two proceedings today. First, the finalization of Colton Pierce's adoption of Bentley Hayes. And second, the marriage of Brooklyn Hayes and Colton Pierce. Brooklyn looked down at Bentley, standing between them in his little suit. Colton had filed for adoption 3 months ago. Bentley had been thrilled. Marcus, from federal prison, had signed away his parental rights without a fight, probably hoping it would reduce his sentence. It hadn't. Mr. Pierce. Judge Morrison addressed Colton. Do you promise to love, protect, and care for Bentley as your son? To provide for his physical, emotional, and developmental needs? To be present in his life, not just financially, but emotionally? I do. Colton's voice was thick with emotion. I promise to be the father Bentley deserves. To listen to his dinosaur facts and read him bedtime stories, and show up for every school event and scraped knee and triumph and failure. I promise to love him as my own because he is my own in every way that matters. Judge Morrison smiled. Then, by the power vested in me by the state of Washington, I declare this adoption final. Bentley Hayes is now legally Bentley Pierce. Colton picked up Bentley and held him close. The little boy wrapped his arms around Colton's neck. I have a daddy, Bentley said wonderingly. A real daddy who's not going away. Never going away, Colton promised. You're stuck with me forever. Good. Judge Morrison gave them a moment. Then she continued. Now, for the marriage. Brooklyn and Colton, please join hands. Colton set Bentley down. The little boy stood between them, holding the rings with the utmost seriousness. Brooklyn and Colton, Judge Morrison said, you've both experienced devastating loss. You've both fought battles that should have broken you. And you've both chosen to transform that pain into something beautiful, into family, into love, into a second chance that proves life can surprise us with joy even after the darkest nights. Brooklyn, do you take Colton to be your lawfully wedded husband, to love and cherish, in sickness and health, for better or worse, as long as you both shall live? I do, Brooklyn said. But can I add something? Of course. Brooklyn looked at Colton. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. I promise to let you help me, to not push you away when I'm scared, to trust that you mean what you say when you promise to stay. I promise to love you not just for saving me, but for seeing me, for believing I was worth fighting for when I'd forgotten how to fight for myself. I promise to be your partner, your equal, not someone you rescue, but someone you build with. And I promise to love you exactly as you are, grief and all, broken pieces and all, because those broken pieces fit perfectly with mine. Colton's face was doing complicated things. He was definitely crying. Colton, Judge Morrison's voice was gentle. Do you take Brooklyn to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do, Colton said. And I promise to show up every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I promise to be the person you and Bentley can count on. Not because I'm trying to be a hero, but because loving you is the easiest decision I've ever made. I promise to honor your strength and your struggle, to never make you feel small or dependent, to be your partner in building the life we both deserve. And I promise to love Bentley as my son, to give him the childhood I wish I'd had, the security, the presence, the unconditional love that every child deserves. Bentley tugged on Colton's pant leg. You forgot the part about the dinosaur facts. Colton laughed through his tears. And I promise to always listen to your dinosaur facts. All of them. Even the really long ones about what dinosaurs ate. Okay, good. The small group laughed. Even Judge Morrison was wiping her eyes. By the power vested in me, the judge said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. And Bentley, I pronounce you the son of two people who love you more than anything in the world. Colton, you may kiss your bride. Colton pulled Brooklyn close and kissed her. It was soft and sweet and full of promises kept and promises yet to be made. When they pulled apart, Bentley was jumping up and down. We're a real family now. A real family. We were always a real family, Brooklyn said. Today we just made it official. They signed the papers. Quinn took photos on their phone. Judge Morrison hugged all three of them and said she'd never officiated a more meaningful ceremony. And then they went home. Not to Brooklyn's studio apartment. She'd given that up 3 months ago when she and Bentley had moved into Colton's penthouse. They were looking for a house now. Something with a yard for Bentley to play in. A kitchen big enough for family dinners. A home that belonged to all three of them. But for now, the penthouse worked. That evening, after Bentley was asleep in his bedroom, decorated with dinosaur murals that Colton had commissioned, Brooklyn and Colton stood on the balcony looking out at the city. Brooklyn was wearing one of Colton's shirts. Her wedding dress was carefully hung in the closet. The marriage certificate sat on the counter, official and real. "What are you thinking?" Colton asked. His arms were wrapped around her from behind. "I'm thinking about a year ago." Brooklyn leaned back against his chest. "A year ago, I was cleaning this building at midnight. I was broken. I was fighting a battle I thought I'd lose. I was so alone. And now I'm standing in this penthouse as your wife. Bentley is legally your son. My nursing license is restored. Marcus is in prison. And I'm so happy I don't know what to do with it." You could just feel it. Colton kissed her temple. "You're allowed to be happy, Brooklyn. You've earned it." "So have you." They stood there in comfortable silence. The city sparkled below them. Inside, their son slept safely. The life they'd built together felt solid and real and permanent. "You know what the craziest part is?" Brooklyn said. "If my babysitter hadn't canceled that night, if I hadn't brought Bentley to work, if he hadn't wandered into your office, none of this would have happened. I'd still be alone." "So would I." "Do you believe in fate?" Colton asked. I didn't. Brooklyn turned in his arms to face him. "I believed in bad luck and hard work and surviving. But now I think maybe some things are meant to happen. Maybe Bentley was meant to walk into your office. Maybe you were meant to see that photo and understand why he called you daddy. Maybe we were meant to save each other." I like that version of the story. "Me too." Colton's expression turned serious. "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I was going to sell the company. Before I met you and Bentley, I was going to sell everything and just, I don't know, disappear, travel, try to outrun the grief." Brooklyn's heart clenched. "Colton, I had the papers drawn up. I was meeting with buyers. I was done. Done building something that felt meaningless. Done pretending success mattered when I went home to an empty house every night. And then Bentley called you daddy. And then I realized I didn't want to run anymore. I wanted to stay. I wanted to build something that mattered. A family, a life, a future that felt worth living." Colton cupped Brooklyn's face. "You saved my life, Brooklyn. Literally. I was drowning and didn't even know it. And you and Bentley pulled me to shore. We saved each other." "Yeah," Colton smiled. "We did." They went inside. Checked on Bentley one more time. The little boy was sprawled across his bed. Spike the dinosaur clutched in one hand, completely at peace. Brooklyn stood in the doorway watching her son sleep and felt overwhelming gratitude. Gratitude for the babysitter who'd canceled. For the desperation that had made her bring Bentley to work. For the moment her son had wandered into the right office at exactly the right time. Gratitude for Colton's kindness. For his grief that had made him understand hers. For his resources that he'd used to fight for justice instead of just accumulating more wealth. Gratitude for second chances. For the possibility of healing. For the reminder that broken people can build beautiful things. "Come to bed," Colton said softly. "Tomorrow's going to be busy." Tomorrow, they were holding a press conference. Brooklyn, along with the 12 other nurses who'd been framed by Marcus and Westridge Pharmaceuticals, would share their stories. The pharmaceutical company had been shut down. Multiple executives were facing charges, and new legislation was being proposed to prevent this kind of fraud from happening again. Brooklyn's story had sparked a movement. She'd become an advocate for medical professionals who'd been wrongly accused. She was working with lawmakers to create better protections, to ensure that whistleblowers were heard instead of silenced. Her pain had purpose now. Okay. Brooklyn took one last look at Bentley. Then she followed Colton to their bedroom. Their bedroom, their home, their family. A year ago, she'd been invisible. Now, she was seen, valued, loved. And as Brooklyn fell asleep in her husband's arms, in the home they shared with their son, she thought about how one word had changed everything. Daddy. It had been a mistake. A confused 4-year-old looking at a stranger and seeing safety. But it had also been a beginning. The first crack in the walls both she and Colton had built around their hearts. The moment when two broken people started healing together. Sometimes the interruptions we fear most become the invitations we need most. Sometimes the disasters become doorways. Sometimes the silence that follows a child's innocent word becomes the sound of everything changing. Brooklyn had learned that love isn't about perfect circumstances or perfect timing. It's about broken people choosing to be brave, choosing to trust, choosing to build something beautiful out of shared wreckage. And as she drifted off to sleep, Brooklyn silently thanked the universe for canceled babysitters and wandering 4-year-olds and billionaires with kind eyes and broken hearts. For second chances. For family. For love. Epilogue. 3 years later. Brooklyn Pierce stood in the backyard of their new house, watching Bentley play soccer with his little sister. Yes, sister. 8 months ago, against every medical prediction, Brooklyn had gotten pregnant. The doctors called it a miracle. Colton called it proof that sometimes impossible things happen. They'd named her Elise, after Colton's first wife, after the woman who'd loved him first and taught him what it meant to be a husband and father. Brooklyn had suggested the name. She'd never met Elise, but she felt like she knew her because she saw the way Elise's love had shaped Colton into the man he'd become. The man who knew how to grieve and heal. The man who understood loss and therefore knew the value of second chances. Bentley, now 7 years old and completely free of selective mutism, was patiently teaching 3-year-old Elise how to kick the ball. No, Ellie, you have to kick it, not pick it up. Soccer doesn't use hands. Elise, who had her father's blue eyes and her mother's determination, promptly picked up the ball anyway and threw it. Bentley sighed dramatically. She's never going to learn. She will. Brooklyn called from the porch. You're a good teacher. Be patient. Colton appeared beside Brooklyn, carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. He handed her one and wrapped his arm around her waist. Hard to believe, he said. What? All of this. The house, the kids, the life we built. Brooklyn leaned into him. 3 years ago, I was cleaning your office at midnight. 3 years ago, I was planning to sell my company and disappear. And now? Now I have a 7-year-old who won't stop talking about space exploration and a 3-year-old who thinks soccer is a hand sport. Colton smiled. Now I have a wife who's changing healthcare policy and saving careers. Now I have a family that makes every single dollar I've ever made feel worth it. Brooklyn turned to kiss him. I love you. I love you too. More every day. Daddy, Bentley called. Ellie threw the ball at my head. Did she hit you? No. Then you're fine. Bentley grinned and went back to teaching his sister, who was now sitting in the grass examining a bug. They're perfect, Brooklyn said. They're chaos, Colton corrected. But yes, perfect chaos. Inside the house, Brooklyn's phone rang. She'd left it on the kitchen counter. She went to answer it. It was Rebecca Morrison, the lawyer who'd represented Brooklyn in her custody case and had since become a friend. Brooklyn, Rebecca's voice was excited. I just got word. The healthcare protection bill passed the Senate. It's going to the president's desk. Brooklyn's hand flew to her mouth. Really? Really? Everything you fought for. Protections for whistleblowers, mandatory investigations for medication discrepancies, criminal penalties for corporations that silence medical professionals. It's all in there, and it's going to be law. Tears streamed down Brooklyn's face. How many people will this help? Thousands, maybe millions. Rebecca's voice was thick with emotion. You did this, Brooklyn. You took your pain and turned it into policy. You're saving careers and lives. We did this, Brooklyn said. All of us. Every nurse who spoke up. Every family who demanded accountability. After the call ended, Brooklyn stood in her kitchen and cried. But these were good tears. Healing tears. Colton found her a few minutes later. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just pulled her close and held her. The bill passed. Brooklyn said against his chest. I know. Rebecca called me too. This is real. We actually changed something. You changed something. Colton pulled back to look at her. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and used it to protect other people. That's not just strength, Brooklyn. That's heroic. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who got angry enough to fight back. Sometimes that's the same thing. They stood there holding each other while outside. Their children played, and inside their home was filled with evidence of the life they'd built. Photos on the walls, Bentley's artwork on the fridge, Elise's toys scattered across the floor, the beautiful mess of family. Do you ever think about that night? Brooklyn asked. The night Bentley called you daddy? Every single day. Do you think he knew? Do you think somehow a 4-year-old understood that you needed us as much as we needed you? Colton smiled. I think kids see things adults miss. They see people's hearts instead of their circumstances. Bentley saw that I was safe, that I was someone who'd protect him and love him. And he was brave enough to claim me as his daddy before I even knew I wanted to be. Best decision he ever made. Best decision any of us ever made. That evening, after the kids were in bed, Brooklyn and Colton sat on their back porch under the stars. Tell me something, Colton said. If you could go back and change what happened with Marcus, if you could have your nursing career without the trauma, would you? Brooklyn thought about it. Really thought about it. No, she said finally, because if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been cleaning your office. Bentley wouldn't have wandered in. We wouldn't have found each other. And yeah, the path was terrible, but it led me here. To you, to this family, to a purpose bigger than just surviving. I'd go through it all again if I knew it ended here. Me too, Colton said. Losing Elise and my son nearly destroyed me, but that grief made me the person who could understand your pain, who could see Bentley's trauma and know how to help, who could fight for you, because I understood what it meant to lose everything. Our broken pieces fit together perfectly, Brooklyn said. Yeah, they do. They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching the stars emerge one by one. Inside their home, their children slept safely. Outside, the world was full of possibility. And Brooklyn Pierce, formerly Brooklyn Hayes, formerly a broken woman who thought she'd lost everything, felt complete. Not because her life was perfect. It wasn't. There were still hard days, still moments of grief and fear, still battles to fight. But she wasn't fighting alone anymore. She had a partner, a family, a purpose. And it had all started with 3 seconds of silence, with a child's innocent mistake, with a word that changed everything. Daddy. Conclusion. The lessons we carry. So what do we learn from Brooklyn, Colton, and Bentley's story? We learn that sometimes our darkest moments are actually doorways. Brooklyn's career destruction felt like the end of her life. It was actually the beginning of her purpose. She became an advocate who changed legislation and saved thousands of careers because she experienced that injustice firsthand. We learn that children see truth adults miss. Bentley called Colton daddy before it was legally true because he recognized safety and love. Children don't care about bank accounts or social status. They care about who makes them feel protected, who listens, who shows up. That's a lesson adults desperately need to remember. We learn that grief can be transformed into connection. Colton's devastating loss made him exactly the person Brooklyn needed. His understanding of trauma, his empathy for pain, his willingness to fight for justice because he knew what injustice felt like. Grief didn't disqualify him from love. It prepared him for it. We learned that accepting help isn't weakness. Brooklyn's pride almost cost her everything. She wanted to fight alone because asking for help felt like admitting defeat. But real strength isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about being brave enough to let people care, to let people fight alongside you. We learned that family is choice, not just biology. Marcus was Bentley's biological father, but he was never a dad. Colton had no genetic connection to Bentley, but he became a father in every way that mattered. Because family isn't about DNA. It's about presence, consistency, love that shows up even when it's hard. We learn that broken people can build beautiful things. Neither Brooklyn nor Colton was whole when they met. They were both carrying devastating wounds. But they didn't wait to be completely healed before loving each other. They healed together. And their brokenness made them better partners because they understood pain and therefore knew how to be gentle with each other's wounds. We learned that one moment can change everything. One canceled babysitter, one child wandering into the wrong office, one word spoken in innocence. These tiny moments that seem insignificant are actually the hinges on which our entire lives turn. And finally, we learned that love is always worth the risk. Brooklyn could have stayed hidden. She could have kept cleaning offices and fighting alone and protecting herself from further hurt. But she chose to be brave. She chose to trust Colton. She chose love over safety. And that choice gave her everything. So, here's my question for you. What door are you standing in front of right now? What opportunity disguised as interruption are you dismissing? What person are you pushing away because trusting them feels too risky? Maybe it's time to be brave. Maybe it's time to let someone help. Maybe it's time to believe that your broken pieces could fit perfectly with someone else's. Brooklyn thought she was just trying to survive one shift without losing her job. She had no idea she was about to meet the man who'd help her rebuild her entire life. You never know what's waiting on the other side of courage. Before you go, I need you to do something. I need you to share this story. Not for me, for the single parent who's fighting an impossible battle and needs to be reminded that miracles happen. For the person grieving a loss and wondering if they'll ever feel whole again. For anyone who's been betrayed and framed and destroyed by someone they trusted. Share this story and tell them that second chances are real, that broken people can heal, that sometimes the family you choose becomes the family that saves you. And leave a comment telling me what lesson hit you hardest. Was it the reminder that accepting help isn't weakness? That children see truth we miss? That one moment can change everything? Tell me what you're taking from Brooklyn and Colton's story, because your comment might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because every week on Cedar Drama, we share stories about real people facing impossible odds and finding hope. Stories about love that transforms, about courage that changes everything, about the truth that no matter how broken you feel, you're not beyond healing. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join a community of people who believe that everyone deserves a second chance, that every person has value regardless of their circumstances. That love, real love, is always worth fighting for. Brooklyn's story started with her son calling a stranger daddy in a moment of innocent confusion. It ended with that stranger becoming the father Bentley deserved and the husband Brooklyn never thought she'd find. Your story might start today, with a choice to be brave, to trust, to let someone in. What will you choose? Thank you for watching Cedar Drama. Remember, you're stronger than your circumstances. You're worthy of love. And your story isn't over yet.